Bride of the Cursed Lake. Chapter 12. The Price of Memory. Part 2. I found the bundle folded carefully in the corner of the chapel. A coat, a sweater, trousers worn but dry. My clothes, or what was left of them before the change had torn through every seam. Someone had saved them. Someone had known. There was no note, no sign, only the faint trace of pine and damp stone. But I knew it was Jenkins. He had always known more than he let on. The villagers said he'd lost his wife to the lake. I was beginning to understand just how much a man could lose and still go on breathing. Now I had cover, cloth to hide the worst of what I had become. My hands still bore the telltale lines, black feathered scars trailing like veins of ink. But from a distance I could pass, a man again, or something close. The couple moved through the village like we once had, unaware, curious, alive. I trailed them at a distance, steps light, breath even. The streets were damp with yesterday's rain, lined with shuttered homes and watchful windows. The woman laughed often, pointing at the uneven rooftops and moss-choked fountains. She slipped her arm through the man's and pulled him toward a vendor stall. "Fresh bread," she said, grinning. "Smells like it was baked 3 decades ago." He chuckled, dutiful but distracted. His eyes flicked toward the forest more than once. That was how it started. First the charm, then the unease. They moved slowly between the narrow lanes, ducking beneath crooked beams. The villagers parted around them with practiced indifference, but I saw it in their eyes. The same sideways glances, the same 2 long pauses. Jenkins stood on his porch, hunched against the wind, his eyes fixed not on the couple, but on the space just behind them, as if watching something follow that no one else could see. They passed him. He muttered low. "Not to them, not really. Just into the wind. Paths don't forget, even if we do." The woman turned, half smiling. "Sorry," but Jenkins was already gone. Inside, shadows swallowing the doorway behind him. I kept to the edges, ducking behind fences and carts, always close, never near. They stopped at the same market square Anna once loved, where she had held up a carved wooden bird and asked if it was supposed to be a swan or a duck. I had laughed then. I didn't laugh now. I could almost hear her again. "It's watching me, James. Look at its eyes, like it knows something." They wandered on, dipping into the old bookshop, then standing beneath the same leaning birch where Anna and I had kissed the morning after we arrived. The woman rested her head briefly on the man's shoulder. He pressed his lips to her temple. The scene unspooled in my mind like film. burning slowly at the edges. Then I saw her, Lilith Ravenscroft, emerging from behind a curtain of ivy that veiled the doorway to her apothecary. She wore the same flowing layers, darker than the shadows, eyes like green fire held too long in glass. She didn't look at the man, only at the woman. It wasn't surprise, it wasn't curiosity, it was recognition, the kind that comes not from memory, but from prophecy. Her gaze stayed too long. Then, deliberately, she turned and vanished inside again. I felt the chill ripple through me like the first time I saw Anna disappear. The villagers might avoid the lake. They might whisper and warn. But Lilith watched and waited, not like the others. She knew something, and I would find out what. I stepped out from the tree line. She saw me. Lilith froze, not in fear of attack, but in fear of recognition. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. Her eyes widened only for a breath, then narrowed to slits, calculating, denying, unraveling, and failing to make sense of what stood before her. She saw a man, but not the man she remembered. I watched the change roll through her, from stone-cold confidence to something else, something brittle. Her spine straightened too quickly, as if forcing poise back into herself. Her fingers flexed near her sides, hidden beneath her layered sleeves. "James," she said at last, or breathed, like a word she never thought she'd have to use again. "I thought you were smarter than this," I said calmly. She didn't respond. Her eyes flicked toward the alley behind me, the rooftops, the church bell tower far off. Not looking for help, looking for escape. "I saw your face that night," I continued, "when Anna vanished. You didn't flinch." Her voice came low, measured. "You don't know what you saw, but I know what I didn't see. Shock, confusion, a single question on your lips." I took a step closer. "You knew." Lilith's jaw tightened. Knowing and choosing are not the same. "No," I said, "but silence is always a choice." She shifted her weight, robes whispering against the stone. "The lake chooses. It always has." "And you," I said, "what do you choose?" She looked at me then, long and flat and heavy. "Survival. That why you held the blade?" That landed. A twitch at her eye. Her breath paused for the span of a heartbeat. "I don't owe you answers." I tilted my head, studying her. "No," I said, "but the truth does." She scoffed, brittle. The truth is a weed. It grows where it shouldn't and dies where it should thrive." "And what does that make you, Lilith?" I asked softly. The gardener, her lips curled into something like a smile, thin and joyless. I'm just the one who remembers. Then remember this, I said, stepping into her shadow. Next time I ask, I won't be using words. She met my gaze, and for one flicker of a moment, something inside her cracked. A flinch behind the eyes, a falter in her breath. Her voice cracked the silence. Not a whisper, not a scream, just a few words spoken like a secret that slipped through locked teeth. The lake wasn't supposed to choose you. Her hand flew to her mouth like she could snatch the sentence back. I looked at her, truly looked, not as a witness, not as a victim, but as something else, something the lake didn't expect. I know, I said, and I also know the problem isn't the lake. Lilith's breath caught in her throat. Her pupils tightened like a candle guttering in sudden wind. I think I'm starting to understand. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just stared, not blinking, not breathing, like a prayer turned to stone. I held her gaze for a long moment, let her feel it. The same stare she once gave me, cold, still, final. Then I turned and walked away.